24th pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Terrion Arnold, defensive back, Alabama.
Yeah, no, this is a great pick for the Detroit Lions. That was a huge need on their defensive side. They traded for Davis from Tampa. Their defense is going to be better.
They keep adding on defense, Rick. Ennis Rakestraw Jr. out of Missouri.
Yeah, no, this is a Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes fit. Just go out and find me a very good football player. This kid is tough. He's a tone setter on the defense. He's not afraid to come up and rack people in the run game. He's very good in zone coverage, but I think this is going to add depth to a much-needed secondary that needed a rehaul after this last offseason.
You know, you guys, I'm just going to go ahead and jump straight into the Detroit Lions at this point because this team, man, really has put together a great offseason so far, and that guy, Brad Holmes, is cooking just like he's been doing consistently over the past few years. He's so far filled pretty much every need that this team had coming into this offseason, and because of that, I think he's made this team even better than they were last year, which is pretty crazy to hear coming out of my mouth considering this team was right on the brink of going to a Super Bowl. So while yes, the guys they drafted are going to have to play good in year one for this team to become better, I really do think that's a possibility, and if they do that, this team is once again going to be one of the scariest teams in the entire NFL to play against. But before we get into why I believe that, if you like Detroit Lions content just like this, make sure to go down and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any Lions videos for the remainder of this offseason. Okay, so to get right back on topic with the Detroit Lions, this team, of course, like I said earlier, is coming off a season where they did make it to the NFC Championship game, but they barely lost to the San Francisco 49ers in a game that I think they should have won. I think most Lions fans would agree with me that they should have won that game, but as we all know, they just didn't end up getting it done, so coming into this offseason, they needed to fill some holes on this roster to make sure that the next time they got there, that didn't happen again. And like I also said at the start of the video, they did add some pieces that I really like, and even though most of those pieces weren't on the offensive side of the ball, I want to talk about the offense first because I think this offense is once again going to be one of the best offenses in the entire NFL, and I don't think that's even up for debate. First things first, the Lions did just extend that guy Jared Goff to a 4-year deal worth $212 million, and while a lot of people hate Jared Goff, I actually kind of think this was a good move. Jared Goff is a guy that throughout his career in the NFL so far has found ways to win football games no matter where he went, whether it was in Los Angeles with the Rams or now in Detroit with the Lions. This guy has proven to be a winner, and on top of that, the most important thing I think this guy brings to the table is the fact that he brings the exact same energy that guy Dan Campbell brings, so he's a perfect culture fit. He wants to be in that underdog role, and he wants to beat all the odds that people put against him, and that's extremely important for a quarterback to have considering they're the leader of the football team. Now, as far as his actual play on the field goes, I also think he's really underrated here with what he's able to accomplish because year in and year out, I feel like this guy puts up pretty good numbers and he's extremely consistent in doing so, which is all you can really ask for from a quarterback. Now, obviously, he's not Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, or Josh Allen, but the Lions don't need him to be that. They need him to be a consistent quarterback that plays really good football behind a good offensive line with a good run game, and that is exactly what Jared Goff is going to give you, so I think the extension does make a lot of sense. You don't got to worry about drafting a quarterback anytime soon, and you can continue to build out this roster in the draft, and that's what we saw the Lions do this year, and it's going to be a big reason why this team is better. Now, outside of Jared Goff, the reason I think this offense is going to be so good is because up front, they're once again going to have one of the best offensive lines in the league, hands down, because every single player on this offensive line is just an absolute stud. They, of course, lost Jonah Jackson, but they replaced him by signing Kevin Zeitler, and at the minimum, Kevin Zeitler is going to give you exactly what Jonah Jackson gave you, if not even better, so I don't hate this move at all. And with the addition of him, everything else on the offensive line is staying the same, and we saw how good they were last year, so I expect them to be one of the best offensive lines once again, and that's going to be the main reason why this team sees success. But even though that's the main reason they see success, it's not the only reason they're going to see success, because you also got guys in the receiver room like Amon St. Brown, who of course also just got extended, coming off a great season as one of the most underrated receivers in the NFL. You've got Jameson Williams, who we've seen get better and better with the more snaps that he's played over time, and I only think that's going to continue. You've got Khalif Raymond, who's a guy I like a lot, especially as a gadget guy that you can use in a lot of versatile ways, which makes up an overall receiver room that I like a lot. Now, what's so great about this team is they don't just have receivers that are really good at catching the football. They also have one of the best tight ends in the entire league in Sam Laporta, who's only going to be going into his second season, and he's probably the second best receiving threat on this team. So to have a guy this young coming back that's only going to continue to get better just makes me so confident in what this passing attack is going to be. Now, even though the passing attack is going to be really really good. The main reason this team won football games last year was because they had the ability to run the football down opposing teams' throats, and that is in big part to this running back room they built out. Firstly, last offseason you went out and you signed David Montgomery, and while some people didn't like the pickup, I did like it because I thought he was a perfect power back that could be that number one back that takes the load. And then in the draft, they went out and got a guy to perfectly pair with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, who absolutely broke out in his first season. I mean, the guy almost rushed for 1,000 yards on only 182 carries, which means he averaged 5.2 yards per carry, which is exactly what you're asking for out of your speed back. I think we're going to see this running back room thrive once again behind this offensive line, and I think we'll see the Lions implement Jahmyr Gibbs even more than they did in his rookie season, which means this guy's numbers are probably going to be pretty ridiculous. And with that being said, man, I think it's pretty easy to see that this offense has literally every aspect of the game down, and when you add to that they have one of the best play callers in the entire NFL and Ben Johnson coming back once again, I have no doubt in my mind that this offense is going to be one of the hardest offenses in the NFL to stop, and if they're not a top 5 offense in the NFL, it's probably going to be a bit of a disappointment. I mean, even if their defense wasn't great, I think this offense could carry them to a Super Bowl because I think they're that good and they're that talented. But what I love about this team is they went out this offseason and really put a ton of focus on the defense to make it better. And man, oh man, I think they've done exactly that. Coming into this offseason, the Lions' biggest need by far on the entire team was in the cornerback room. They needed to fill that room with some more pieces, especially with the loss of Cam Sutton, and Brad Holmes found a way to go out and get that done, not only through the draft, but also through free agency. Firstly, in free agency, he went out and added Carlton Davis, who we all know is a very solid player at this point in his career, and he is going to immediately make this room better. And then on top of that, you also added 2 guys that fit the Lions culture perfectly in the draft that are also really good players in Terrion Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw Jr. Both of these guys were great value picks at the selection they were taken, and they both want to come in and be extremely physical at the line of scrimmage and bump receivers off the routes by getting in their frame, and that is exactly what Dan Campbell wants on this defense. They're going to fit in perfectly, and I honestly think they're going to make an immediate impact that makes this secondary extremely good, extremely fast. And when you pair that with the fact that they also added DJ Reader and Marcus Davenport to the defensive line, you're not only going to be able to lock down in coverage, but you're also going to be able to get after the passer a lot faster, which will make the guys in coverage job a lot easier. So when all of that is working together, this defense overall really does have a chance to be special, and if they're special, combined with everything I've talked about on the offensive side of the ball, this team is, like I said earlier on in the video, going to be extremely scary, and they're once again going to have a chance to contend for a Super Bowl.